I want to give a big shout out to all my Patrons. We're at 52 strong. You guys are always representing in the chat, and thank you guys so much. I love you all. And we got 2 new members as of yesterday, I believe, Raymond and Tua. So say what's up to Raymond and Tua, all my Patrons. Hit them up in our Patreon feed. You guys are awesome. You guys are going to love it. Thanks for signing up. This week, we're going to be doing a Zoom meeting with everybody to wrap up Chapter 7 of Honolulu Homicide. So thank you guys for coming out. All right, so tonight's discussion is going to be about the recent controversy surrounding Major Stephen Gerona, if you saw the thumbnail in the video. He's been the subject of numerous reports recently after 4 veteran officers came forward accusing him of bullying, retaliation, harassment, creating hostile work environment, being a bully, basically. At least a dozen complaints have been filed. That's why we're out here talking. You guys have been asking about it, so I wanted to give you my perspective. It is not super cut and dry. And that's why it seems so messy. That's because it is. There's a lot of things that make it that way. It's a big department. There's a police union. And a lot of things in the department have to do with seniority. So there's good and bad things about all those things, and that's why it gets pretty messy. And that's why it's not easy to make changes. It's a big ship to steer. So that's what we're going to get into today. We should be on for about an hour, and let's get into it. The first thing I want to say, I don't even know who he is. Kehaulani, T. Kehaulani. Yeah, my Patreon, somebody shoot something in the chat. I'll throw something up here too for the Patreon. But I don't even know who this guy is, to be honest with you. I've never worked for him. I don't even know if I've ever met him. I'm sure I've met him award ceremonies or like when I graduated, majors, all the brass comes out when you graduate police academy, promotion ceremonies, or, you know, things that we're doing. So I'm sure that I've met him, but I can't remember him. I know his face, but we always look at organizational charts, things like that. So I really don't know anything about him personally. So I want to clarify that. And because I don't know him personally, I can't give you any insider info on him personally. I also don't know Miley Rego either. So I've seen her around and I heard her name, but I don't know her personally. So I'm going to give you my perspective as an outsider of the situation, but also as an insider of HPD, and how I can see that this could go either way. So I don't have any motive here, except to clarify things, because I know it sounds messy. And for civilians, for people that aren't in the police department, it's like a whole new world. It's like a whole new world to even understand what happens at the police department. Certain things sound shady and corrupt that aren't, and other things that sound straight up can be shady and corrupt. So it's kind of backwards, and you kind of need to see it from inside the halls of HPD. So that's what we're going to do here. But I know that he's been in the department for 38 years. I'm 39 years old, so he was hired not even 2 years after I was born. So he'd been there a long time. To say that he is an OG is an understatement. There are not many people who have more years than him. I'd venture to say a dozen or two, maybe, of the whole department. Keep in mind, over 2,000 police officers. So he's been there a long time. I know that there were 2 lawsuits that both ended in settlements totaling $1.5 million that he was involved in or the center of. These are lawsuits that people talk about ever since you get into the academy. I know that right when I got into the academy in 2011, I already knew about the lawsuits because when I was at the academy, Sergeant Deeann Koanui was a sergeant at the time. She was a lieutenant when she retired a few years ago. And I knew her real well ever since I came in. From like the first week in the academy, I knew who she was. She was involved at Korenic. And up until my last assignment, she was like one of my lieutenants. So I worked with her basically my whole career. And she is responsible for a lot of my development as a policeman. She went to bat for me when I was trying to work on some investigative stuff and when I was really trying to be proactive and press in. She really helped. And she was the person who called me, who offered me the overtime position to do the stakeout when we caught Asafito Fio, that serial rapist. So I owe her a lot. I do know her, so I can say that from my personal experience, I put a lot of weight on what she says. So she had a lawsuit in 2009, which was like 2 years before I went to the academy and became a recruit. And her lawsuit settled 2 years ago in 2019, so it took about 10 years. And she got $550,000, something like that. So that other lawsuit was like $1 million lawsuit. I don't know anything about that one. I don't know any particulars or whatever. But Gerona and Susan Ballard were supposedly at the center of that case. Mahalos, T. Thanks for signing up. Appreciate you. I'll see you on Monday. We'll connect. All the Patreons show some love. So Deeann Koanui talked about manipulation of written and physical exam scores at the academy that happened in 2008. Apparently there was a lot of vacancies at HPD, which there's been a lot of vacancies ever since, to be honest with you, even right now, which had started a trend of HPD lowering standards. I've seen it myself. And they were trying to fill these unfilled officer positions. So her complaint claimed that she faced retaliation and harassment for reporting altered test scores to PSO. PSO is our professional standards office. It's like internal affairs. When you watch a movie and they talk about internal affairs, we changed ours. I remember the reason I was told we changed ours is so it didn't sound so grim and so that it didn't look like the enemy. They didn't want officers who went to internal affairs to be like the enemy. Didn't change much. To be honest with you, everybody's still scared of PSO. So she said that Gerona went after her when she declined to pass unqualified recruits at Korenic to fill vacancies. So basically, you have a certain amount of things that you have to do in a certain amount of time. You have to do so well on certain tests or you fail. And no matter how hard you work or study or work out, if you can't pass those things, you fail. And there's certain deadlines that you got to get to certain thresholds. There's one threshold that you got to get, I forget what week it is, but you basically got to reach a certain threshold to show growth, to show that you're within range of reaching the final threshold for your final PT test. And they're not very hard. We're talking 30 push-ups, 30 sit-ups. You got to be able to finish a 1.5 mile run in like, I don't know, 20 minutes or something. Like something super easy. You could walk it. You could fast walk it and make it. You got to bench press. It's like, what, 80% of your weight? It might be 60% of your weight. It might not be anything crazy. In any case, you got to be able to do these things. And unfortunately, like I remember when I tested, when I did my PTT, they used to call it the physical trainability test. There were 3 people that did not pass the day we took our test. So out of the 40 that took the test, 3 of them didn't make it. That's just to get into the academy. Then you have a certain test when you're in the academy that you got to get to. And I do remember one person not making it. So we had spent weeks, months with this person. And she was a sweet girl. Her name was Marissa, and she couldn't get the bench press. So it was sad to see her go, but she couldn't pass. And I believe it was Marissa Okimoto. And she couldn't pass, and she was a good chick, and she worked hard, man. She worked real hard. Only to then fail, get recycled into the next class, and then the last week, I believe, when we were going through scenarios to graduate academy, she broke her ankle, I believe. And she never became a police officer. So like, it's sad to see that happen, but it's needed. And I think they would all agree, like, you need to have some kind of standard. And for the police academy to set a standard is important. And then to fluff that standard for certain people, I'm not going to say I didn't see it. I mean, it seemed like there were some things that happened that shouldn't have happened, you know, that people maybe got some chances they shouldn't have got, but like, who am I? You know what I mean? And is it a huge difference to be able to do 29 push-ups and not 30? No. But I think the point is, you have a goal, you know what you have to do. Can you set that goal and attain that goal with hard work and dedication? And I think that's a major point. Because to be honest, if you can only do 30 push-ups, that's not very impressive anyway. And I do think that policemen should be able to do more than 30 push-ups. So I think those standards are important. And they were having a hard time filling those vacancies. And Koanui said that she wouldn't pass them, but Gerona wanted her to pass them. And after they took tests, failed tests, that even the chief, former chief, and at the time she was a major, Susan Ballard, played a role in altering the test scores of some of the police academy recruits to make them acceptable. So she was responsible for evaluating and labeling the test scores for the recruits in April of 2008. And apparently 7 recruits failed a written exam of their knowledge of property crimes. 5 of them failed the retest and should have been terminated. So how it works at the academy, you can fail your test, but you have to retest and you have to pass it. If you fail both retest, or you fail the original test and the retest, you're gone. And we didn't have anyone fail. Nobody failed the tests. We did have another recruit fail on push-ups on the final test and had to be recycled into the next class. But I don't think anyone failed in ours. Apparently here, 7 of them failed the first test, and then 5 of them failed the retest and should have been fired. And they can recycle them into the next class to do it again. They just weren't ready at the time. They were immature. Their life situation wasn't great, whatever. But instead of firing them, Koanui said that they were given passing scores by Ballard and Gerona. And when a recruit failed a portion of the physical test and the retest, Ballard, who was a major at the time, ordered Deeann Koanui to give the recruit a passing score. The thing is, Koanui had already told the recruit that she had failed, so she had to go back to the recruit and say, you passed. So everybody knew what was up. So that's what that suit talks about. And apparently when Ballard and Gerona became aware of Koanui's opposition to the practice of falsifying test scores. Koanui asserts that she became the target of discrimination, harassment, retaliation, and was removed from her role in supervising the physical training program. So her lawsuit says that Ballard ordered Koanui to get psychiatric evaluation, which showed her as being fit for duty. So basically, what she said was that after she told them that she wasn't into what they were doing, changing those scores, that she was ordered to go get a psychiatric evaluation, which is crazy when you think about it. Sit, sit, sit. Good girl. Got my dog in here trying to hang out. So that's crazy. But those are some of the ways that this kind of stuff can happen. So how HPD works is there are certain rules that you got to follow, right? We have standards of conduct, we have policies and procedures. How this works is these policies and procedures and standards of conduct, which you are required to maintain, or you'll get what we call 384. That's the first step. Technically, HPD says that a 384 is not a discipline because it doesn't stay on your permanent record and it doesn't really affect your rank or position. But that's not the whole story, and we'll get into that later. So during an interview, Koanui said the reason why it's so crazy is because taxpayers are paying for Gerona's behavior because the leadership protects him. I don't know. I can't speak to them protecting Gerona. I don't know how it works up there. I've never been brass. So I don't know how that works. Or if that's even real. I imagine it can be. I mean, look what Louis K. Law, look what we had going on there. So I don't know. I can't attest to any of what she's talking about there. But I know that on the police, on like the patrolman's level, we never saw that kind of stuff. For the most part, you're not going to have anybody protecting you up on the 4th floor. And the only people you could have protect you is, say, your beatman or maybe your sergeant or your lieutenant if you had a good relationship with them, if you worked hard, your beat partners, people that you worked with all the time, maybe even your admin office or whoever, you worked with. I can see them like standing up for you just like any other coworker. At this level, I'm not sure what happens up there. But apparently, at some point, Gerona is head of CID. And CID is one of the most important divisions of the department. CID is what we call the Criminal Investigation Division. That's where all the detectives work. That's upstairs. That's all your detectives. So when you're watching First 48, all those dudes that are interviewing the murderers, those are all detectives. They work in their own CID. That's how that works. Apparently, he ended up in CID after multiple complaints that were made at his previous assignment in D3, District 3, which is Pearl City. I went through Pearl City for my FTO phase. I don't remember him. But there was a girl in District 3, a female officer who didn't want to be named in the Silver Beat story. She said that he created a hostile work environment for them. She said that she was exposed to COVID-19 last year. She notified her supervisors, notified the doctor. She was told to get tested and forced to stay home and wait for the results. Back then, first of all, let me say this. Back then, HPD allowed administrative leave to be used for isolating. HPD, this is one place that they got to step up their game. It is unacceptable to me that HPD will require officers to isolate when getting exposed to COVID-19, but then force them to use their own time or take leave without pay. To force someone to take LWOP for being exposed to COVID-19 on the job or getting a vaccine that they're required to get by their job, you should allow them that week of isolation or quarantine, and it should be paid on admin leave. There were tons of times where for like Labor Day or Kamehameha Day or just name some, police officer appreciation week or whatever, where the chief would give all the officers one admin day. It was like a gift of leave. He would give you 8 hours of leave. You could use it for whatever. And And then if you had perfect attendance every year, you could get admin leave. So for a department to require you to get the vaccine and then require you to take time off after getting the vaccine is not cool if they're making you take your own leave, because the job is requiring you to get it. The job should pay for that. Yes, the city and county pays for that. So yes, taxpayers ultimately pay for that. But this is what we're paying our police officers to do. So you're paying them to show up, to do a dangerous job, to get exposed with COVID more than you, then this is how this works. And the city should be responsible, not the officer's leave time. It shouldn't affect the time he can spend with his family or his sick time when he really does get sick just because he got sick, just because he had to do that. So that was my own, I had to get off my soapbox. But in any case, this girl was exposed to COVID-19, told her supervisors and the doctor, was told to get tested, forced to stay home and wait for the results. She didn't even get a positive result yet. She was just waiting for the results, and she tried to use her admin leave. And Gerona wanted her to use her own sick time instead. So I've heard from several officers that HPD requires you to use your own time. I don't know if they've changed anything, but as of a month ago, that's how it was. Yes, some people will take advantage of you allowing admin leave for COVID-19 exposure. I get it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Yes, it allows for people to take advantage. So what? Suck it up, buttercup. This is how it is. Right now we're in a pandemic. If you're going to perpetuate them going through that, then you're going to have to take care of it. So, the girl said that her lieutenant, so when you're on patrol, you have a lieutenant that's over your whole watch. If you're on first watch, second watch, or third watch, you have a lieutenant. And you have a lieutenant over admin. And so let's say you're on patrol on second watch, day watch. You have a bunch of officers that work in the district, like 12 to 20 officers, depending on the size. Each of them will have a sergeant. A sergeant will watch over 4 or 5 guys. Then you have a sergeant that's over scheduling. Then you have a lieutenant. He's the watch commander. He runs the watch. All decisions go through the LT for that watch. The LT will then answer to a captain who's over everybody. And then the captain will answer to the major, who then answers to the assistant chiefs and deputy chiefs and chiefs. So her lieutenant, so this girl who didn't want to take her own sick leave for this, pushed back when she wanted to use admin leave. Her lieutenant said that Gerona got real upset, saying that she was trying to manipulate the system. She was trying to get paid for not being at work when all she did was do her job. But the lieutenant knew it was because he didn't like her and he was trying to cause her trouble. So when the lieutenant defended her, the lieutenant was subsequently reassigned to the admin position and suffered harassment and retaliation from Gerona. So the admin position is not a more desirable position. For maybe a few fringe officers, that's a desirable position based on their family situation, or, you know what I mean? Whatever they got going on in their family. They got to pick up kids at a certain time, so they don't like work in the watch hours. So they'll work banker's hours, essentially. So they're working regular 8-hour days, 40-hour weeks. But they're in the office. They're in the office working around the other brass, which is not a great place unless you're kind of buddy-buddy with them. You want to be on the road. It's more fun, and you're not running into the brass, so you're not getting in trouble all the time. That's the vibe it is. It's like you try to stay away from the brass because you got to do certain things a certain way around the brass. Because if they see it, they got to complain, and then you get written up, right? So something's off on your uniform. Like you forgot to get when you make 5 years, you get a star on your uniform. Call it a mustard stain, that first one. And then if you get 2 of them, like when you make 10 years, you got to get 2 of them. But I didn't care about putting a star on my uniform. I don't want to take in my uniform. It's a big pain in the butt to take them down to Pacific Woolen, drop them off, get them sewed on, all this crazy stuff. So sometimes we didn't do it. When you worked on night watch like I did, I never saw the brass. I was at midnights. So I never thought about it until it's time to go to day watch for something, cover the watch, or there's a parade or whatever we had to do. And all of a sudden I realized, yo, I'm missing a star. If the brass sees that I'm missing a star and they know I got different years, they're going to write me up. So like it's just like anything else. When the big boss is at work, you try to avoid the big boss because you don't want him to say, hey, your shirt's untucked or whatever. And imagine at the police department when you got to have white gloves for inspection, you got to have your hat on, your boots got to be shined, all this stuff. So when you work day watch admin, you're always around them. That's why it's like a less desirable position. And you're not as respected by the officers because you're not out there grinding. Everybody respects patrol because they're the backbone of the department. They're doing the hard work. They're doing the dangerous stuff. That's why he's saying that's less desirable. And he was her lieutenant. And so now he's on admin. So the term that was thrown around a lot in a lot of in the videos that we've watched, we've all seen him, is that he was a bully. These are just allegations at this point. I don't know. I never met him. There's another story of the widow of an officer said Gerona picked on her husband. She said that Gerona denied her late husband special duty jobs on his days off when their daughter was born last year. And this year, she said Gerona lumped him into the broad investigation for COVID enforcement overtime abuse because he was part of a team of about a dozen officers. So we know about that. I've talked about this extensively on the channel before. That whole COVID debacle was nonsense. It was a junk move. It was a dirty move by the brass. They threw officers under the bus. It wasn't as it seemed. And I knew that from the moment I saw it. I could smell it right away. You cannot get officers in trouble for assignments that you told them to take. That's just what it is. They make it, when they say overtime abuse, it makes everyone think they were stealing. That's not how it works. They were told they're only allowed to work a certain amount of overtime. They worked more. There's two reasons: to spread out the overtime and to make sure officers aren't working too much so that they can be effective on their normal shift. That's why that's there. To make it sound like people were stealing overtime. So, and if that did happen, it was on a very small scale. But they did this broad COVID investigation to try to show the public that they were doing their due diligence. And that's what's messed up about it. Making the officers look like they were the dirty ones. But it was all dirty at the top. So, that officer on May 1st killed himself. And his wife thinks that he did it so that she could collect his pension and benefits for her and her daughter. Because when an officer dies, the wife and beneficiaries will get benefits from the pension. So she thinks that's what he did. And one of the articles I read said that Gerona's handling of the COVID-19 CARES Act funds was not popular with officers. So some complaints were made against him that stemmed from his efforts to ensure that officers didn't use overtime funds created by COVID-19 to pad earning formulas with the state's employee retirement system. So the ERS, or the Employees Retirement System, for certain officers that came in before 2012. I think it was the 172 class. I was 169, I think it was 3 classes after me. The retirement program was your high 3 years, and that included overtime. So you would get a percentage of the average of your high 3 years, and you could work overtime to get that average up. So what you would do is you'd see a lot of officers that would go solo bike, which is a 25% hazard pay because they're going to die almost every time they ride out there. It's super dangerous. ATV officers get 20%. I love the ATV unit because of that. And then there's certain things that you get. But overtime, court, all that stuff adds to that year. So later in your career, when you make L5 or you make your basically like a senior sergeant level, if you go to a unit that gets a lot of work, like solo bike, traffic, or CID, where you're constantly doing overtime because you're an on-call detective and you have basically all the overtime you want because you got to close the case in 48 hours or you got to charge the case in 48 hours. So if you go up there at your highest pay rate, which means your highest hourly pay rate, and you have 23, 25 years in, and you start working all this overtime, now you're high, you definitely make your high year. And if you do it for 3 years, you have 3 high years, they take the average. If you work 25 years, you get 62.5% of the high 3 years. So if you made $200,000 in a year, which definitely happens, then you'd make 62.5% for the rest of your life of that 200,000, which is like 120,000 a year for the rest of your life. If you died, your wife and kids get the money. After the 172, I think it was the 172, it was high 5, no overtime, so base pay. The problem with that is then that encourages people to promote, because the only way to get a raise for your retirement is to make a higher base pay. So whereas before people would stay footman, motorman, and PO9 and sergeant, and then they would just work a bunch of overtime to make money. When with this later, with the new retirement system, the new agreement, it was high 5. You basically means you gotta promote. So you see a lot of new officers promoting really fast, not wanting to stay on patrol and do patrol work because they're trying to make money for retirement. That's what he's talking about. So apparently with the COVID-19 stuff, so HPD supervisors are expected to curtail such activities known as spiking, they call it. The ERS may penalize HPD by forcing it to pay the difference the employee would normally receive until the retiree dies. So Gerona was trying to stop the officers that were taking the overtime trying to make their high 3. And he was doing it under the guise of saying he didn't want people to be spiking their retirement. So like there's a justification for why he was doing it, but it's a pretty douchey move because you need people to work the overtime. They're willing to work the overtime, so you better be willing to pay the price for that. If you want to have experienced officers working the overtime, then you're going to have to pay them the experience rate. So to me, that makes sense. And then the final incident which brought this to everybody's attention was the Katana Ancog case. So Miley Rago, she wasn't assigned to the Ancog case, but she was up in CID. She was the child abuse detective, and she was trained at both the state and federal level. So apparently she starts looking into the Katana Ancog case, mostly because this is her MO. Like this is what she does. This is what she knows the most about, that she's an expert. I had things that I specialized in the department. And so when certain things popped up, I looked into them because I worked in town and chances are I was going to hear about it or run into it or it was going to impact me or affect my schedule, affect what I did, affect how I worked on the beat or with my unit. So I looked into cases too. And you're allowed to do that as a policeman. So Rago wasn't on the Ancog case, but she looked into it because that's what she does as the child abuse detective. And she's the one the department puts all this money behind to train her to do those things. So we all know the story. The girl was dropped off with her father, Travis Rodriguez, and he was a convicted felon, had a violent past. Rago wanted a Miley Amber Alert issued for the toddler and even more assistance from the FBI because they have way more resources and technology. They help with those kind of things. They help with high-profile cases where there's a lot of danger to young kids or a lot of people. And they have profiles. They know what to do. They have more experience. They travel the whole country and look at everywhere. Whereas HPD just focuses on Hawaii crime. So she wanted help from the FBI and she wanted the Miley Amber Alert. But she says CID command staff under Gerona refused. She said, it's my professional opinion that we failed. When you can't find a vulnerable 18-month-old somewhere, common sense needs to kick in. Now, instead of listening to what she had to say, Rager was told that the commanders were going to launch an investigation into her for unauthorized computer access because she started to work the case when it wasn't assigned to her. So let me talk about this for a second. This is one thing. like I only know from an officer's perspective, and I only worked with solid people, good people. Sure, there was a few few bolos and slugs who just, whatever. But you're going to get that anywhere you work. But for the most part, everybody was great. Everybody worked hard. They wanted to serve the communities. That's the people I worked with. And they knew the law. They knew Hawaii. They knew people. They had connections. Like, they knew how to get things done. So I worked with good people. And one of the negative things I have to say about HPD is because they want to appear transparent and like they want to appear to the community like we're doing the right things, they overcompensate for the areas that they're lacking. You never hear them talk about the things that they're lacking in, which is annoying. And it really contributes to, Kim Mansonon in the super chat. Thank you, Kim. Always giving, man. Thank you so much. Law. Mahalo's for all the gifts. You guys are always great, man. Thank you for that, Kim. Kim's been around since day one, so you guys all have seen her name if you've been here any amount of time. So, Kim, come on. $20. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kim. Mahalos for the super chat, for the super thanks. You guys are awesome. So where was I? You messed me up with that, Kim. So here's what I don't like. There are standards of conduct and there are policy and procedure, right? That are just too hard to follow and be a proactive policeman. But here's how this works. Nobody can do all the policies, procedures, and standards of conduct. It's highly unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's highly unlikely. But everyone knows that. You can't always do everything right. There's so many things, and I mean hundreds of policies and procedures and standards of conduct that involve every little thing that you do. And I get it because you want accountability. However, these things have been greatly exaggerated. Someone screws up, ruins it for the rest of them. They do something they're not supposed to do, so they make a policy. Someone else screws up, so they make a policy. Someone else screws up, they make a policy. Now we have all these policies based on outliers. You have like the main group of policemen that basically do everything they're supposed to do. But then you have these outliers on the extreme sides. And every time they do something, we would get a new policy. So that's how we knew someone screwed up. A new policy would pop up every single week. You get new policies updated. You get info notices, we call them. And so they make all these policies. Nobody can follow them all, and there's no way for you to remember them. But one way that people can be retaliated against is by selective enforcement. And it doesn't mean that they'll just pick out a certain person and then violate them for standards of conduct and write them a 384. But there may be certain times, right, where we're being scrutinized. Or let's say your unit screwed up. Someone in your unit screwed up, the commander found out about it, so all of a sudden they're watching you. And now for the next month, your life is hell, and everybody's getting 384s because every little thing that you did, you got in trouble for. So it's not written in the policy to be to discriminate or written in the policy to harass people, and they're not protecting certain people per se. But no one, it's kind of like traffic. None of you can follow all the traffic laws. It's impossible. I promise you. Any policeman will tell you, if I follow you for 60 seconds, I promise you I'll find a violation, which is my probable cause to stop you. So policemen aren't making up why they pulled you over. They don't have to. That's why I hate that argument. If you think an officer made something up for why he he stopped you, either you're just wrong or you are a very, very small percentage. Because I promise you I'll get something. If you just are swerving in between the lanes, you never left your lane. You got something hanging from your rear view. One of your lights on your license plate is out. Your lights look modified. Right? You need to signal for essentially what would be about 100 feet before you exit the lane. Nobody does that. You turn on your blinker, you change lanes. You don't put it on there for 10 seconds and then change lanes. Nobody does that. So I'm going to get you for something. It's the same way with this. It's like you're always violating, but they let everybody slide. And then when it's time to jam you, we call it the hammer. Then they give you the hammer. They had it. They had it in the, they had the arrow in the quiver. They just weren't shooting it yet. So I see how this stuff does happen. Technically, what she did was probably unauthorized computer access, because we have policies and procedures that say that you can't just go looking through everyone's file, which I say is nonsense. I think it's crazy. You are a policeman. You have access to people's file. If you keep seeing someone on your beat and you want to know what their story is, I don't see a problem with you looking up their rap sheet. Yo, this is their rap? Oh, okay. This makes sense. You can't take that info and go arrest them on it. That's all in the past. That's the problem. But why are you making it so I can't even look at it? So for them to come at her for unauthorized computer access, that's one of those hammers I'm telling you about. Everybody looks at cases. I promise you, if I go to work as a policeman and I hear that Katana Ankog is missing and there's suspicious circumstances, you think the first thing I'm not going to do when I get in my shift is go type up that case and be like, what's going on with this? I want to know the real story in case I find her or run into that dude. Or maybe I saw her on my beat. Maybe I'm going to get info from one of the crumbs that I talk with every day. And one of the comments was, you're too nosy. That's what policemen are. Policemen are nosy, but that's how it works. Like that's a part of being investigative, right? Like that's what makes policemen good at their jobs. If they weren't nosy to become a policeman, they became nosy after they became a policeman. I'm super nosy. My poor kids can't get away with nothing. My son tells me a story and that story don't add up right, I'm asking questions. So that's how that works. And that's what makes a good cop. And we're kind of like taking the fangs out of policemen because of a few bad ones. And then look what's happening. So I see how that unauthorized computer access, that seems like a punk move on her. So she says, yo, we need to do a Miley Amber alert. He says, no, we don't. And then starts an investigation on her instead of putting all hands on deck and putting it on Katana Ankog. But I also see from the other perspective, there are certain thresholds you got to meet to get Miley Amber alerts or any other classification. There are certain things you need to APB something on the radio. There's certain things you need to have probable cause, certain things you need for a police pursuit. You just have to have thresholds. That's how you make them enforceable. So I also see how there has to be certain rules. It just is what it is. There are rules that got to be applied to people. Shiloh, thank you so much. You didn't have to do that. It's crazy. That might be my biggest super chat ever. Now, you've been around forever too, Shiloh. Thank you for all the support. You're great. Thank you so much. Man, that's awesome. You guys are crazy. You don't have to do that. You know that. I just want to hang out with you guys. So it was my wife's birthday yesterday. Maybe I'll get her something nice. Thank you, Shiloh. So Reigo's supervisor, Mark Matsusaka, stood up for her. And then he caught heat for standing up for her. Lieutenant Mark Matsusaka, who I think is now retired, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not. He said she's extraordinarily passionate about her work to the point where I have to pull her back sometimes because she just wants to leap forward. Her heart is in the right place. To see the department do what they're doing to her, I could not support them. So after they went public, with all you guys saw what happened when they went public, right? They did that behind the badge or whatever. No, what was the most recent dramatic presentation they did? When all that happened and they went public, now they got 384s. So 4 officers received 384s for going public. I'm going to put the link for those of you who haven't seen it. Here is a link to the Hawaii News Now article about the 384s. I want to explain 384. So a 384 technically is not a disciplinary action. Technically, a 384 is a warning. And they give it to you first. After a 384, and those things come off your record after 5 years. So you get a 384, and then it comes off your record in 5 years. It doesn't follow you around, if I'm not mistaken. So I never got a 384 until one day. So here, I'll give you some perspective. One day, I went to the McDonald's by the NEX. Whatever that McDonald's is, I believe it's Salt Lake. It's past Mo'ili. I forget what the name of the street is. Right off the Nimitz. And I was in the McDonald's. My kids were playing in the play place. I'd never been at 384. And I'm in the play place and I'm watching my kids play in the playpen. I worked midnight, so I had already worked that night. And I was off for the weekend. While I'm in the play place, I watched this dude walk in. He was Japanese. He was a local Japanese. So he was probably like, he looked local mixed with Japanese. He walks in, he's got a newspaper and a laptop. And his feet are super dirty. And he goes into the play place, but there were no kids with him. I had my kids with me and my wife. My kids were the only kids playing in there. So I knew those kids were my kids, and I knew he didn't have kids. And he walks in and he takes out all the newspapers and he set them on the table just like this, pinkies up. And he would slowly float all the newspapers on the table and on all the bench where he was sitting and on the floor where his feet were. So he covered the floor, covered the bench, covered the table. Then he sat down and he set up his laptop and opened it and faced the laptop towards the kids, towards my kids. Bells are going off in my head. None of this is right, what he's doing. It's all off. He's MO. We called it MO, mentally off. Mike Oscar. And I was watching him. And I would watch him like manipulate his laptop so that the camera was facing the kids. So I didn't want to cause a scene, but I knew he was up to no good. I walked around outside. And as I passed by him, I tried to see if I could see his laptop. He moved his laptop. He faced himself in the corner. It was a corner table. So that the people walking on the right couldn't see his laptop. The people walking on the left couldn't see him. And there was a wall behind him. But when you walk by, he would adjust the laptop so you couldn't see what he was watching. So right away, I'm thinking he's a pervert. He's watching porn. He's trying to get my kids on video because I saw a camera on his laptop. So I said, I made up a story to my wife that I was going to the bathroom. I'm like, babe, I'm going to go to the bathroom. So I walk out, I see him adjust his computer. Well, then I walk around the other side and I peek in the window. He had turned the laptop so I couldn't see it when I left, But when I walked outside the other side, I looked in the window and you could see, and he's watching porn and he had his camera open. So he's trying to record my kids and he's watching porn in the McDonald's play place. Is any of that illegal? No. You can watch porn, you can be in a McDonald's play place, and you can record children in the public. All those things you can do. Technically, you can be a pervert and it's legal. You just can't do certain things. So I didn't have any probable cause with this dude. It's Valkenburg, that's what it is. Good call. 25 actual. So I'm seeing red. What do I want to do? I want to strangle the guy till he dies and dump him in the ocean. I'm a father. That's what I want to do. Sorry, not sorry. I want to kill the guy. I don't know what his intentions are, but my kids are involved and I want to kill him. That's what it is. Being honest. Am I going to do that? No. I would never do something like that. I love people. I don't want to hurt anybody. This guy at that moment, I want to hurt him, but I'm not gonna. And I'm not stupid. I don't want to throw away my career. I'm not going to do nothing stupid or illegal. And I got my kids there. What am I going to do? Right? So I walk around to him and I get real close to him and I said, hey, I know what you're doing. I saw you watching porn and I see you trying to get my kids on your webcam. So I know what you're doing and it's not okay. What I'm going to do is go to the manager and I'm going to tell him what you're doing and we're going to trespass you. Because you're not even in here. And the sign on the door says children only or with their parents. So he starts getting lippy and getting all nuts. So I walked to the manager. I said, yo, there's a dude in there watching porn, trying to get my kids on camera. And he's like, I forget what the guy's name was. I really forget. Let's say his name was Steve. He was like, who, Steve? Is that why he comes here? He comes here every single day, sits in the play place with his camera up, using the internet, and is always in there, but he never brings kids. And for 6 months, he's been doing this since I've been the manager. I never knew what he was doing. Now I know. I'm like, great, now you know. Would you like to trespass him? He's like, we're not allowed to trespass at this location. That's real. 7-Elevens, plenty places, they don't allow you to trespass. It's like in their policy. So he says, I can't trespass him. I said, well, how about this? Oh, Kai Lyons, thank you. He says, go to sleep, bro. Oh, you still got a half hour. Thank you for the gift, man. Mahalo's Kai. Always supporting, dude. I appreciate you. So this dude can't trespass him. So I walk over, I take a picture. I bring the picture over to the manager. I said, listen, I took a picture of him. This is what you need for a trespass warning. I want you to call your manager and find out what you can do. So I send him the picture. He doesn't want to call the police. He's not allowed to trespass him. He has to talk to his district manager, whatever that is. So I don't call the police. I don't call the beatman. HPD has a policy that says that if you are ever in a situation where you are required to use your police authority and you're off duty, you're supposed to call the beatman on scene to do it for you, unless there's exigent circumstances. Well, in this case, there wasn't exigence. He wasn't going to hurt my kids. We were going to leave. I tried to trespass him. It didn't work. So I said to the manager, what do you want to do? He said, I want him to leave. That's not cool. He can't do that on my shift. I said, well, you're going to have to trespass him. He said, no, he'll leave. So I go over there. I said, yo, the manager wants you to leave. He said, I'm not going nowhere. I pulled out my badge and I said, the manager wants you to leave. You don't want to get trespass warned. He didn't know the manager wasn't going to trespass him, but the manager wanted him to leave. So I verbal judoed the guy to get him to leave. He leaves. Well, first he comes up to the manager, starts talking all this stuff. I'm going to make a complaint on you, all this stuff. The long and short of it is, this guy stays behind. I leave with my family. He goes and hides in the bushes. I couldn't find him. I drove around the parking lot looking for him to make sure he was leaving. If he was going to get in a car, I was going to write down the license plate and I was going to know. This dude, this is what he's doing. I would have sent an email to the department saying, I caught this dude doing this. It's not illegal, but he's borderlining on it. We should keep an eye out. but I couldn't find the guy. So I leave. I go to work the next week after the weekend, and I got a investigation on my desk in my mailbox saying, yo, you're being investigated. I need you to write a to from, which is our letter to the department. Write a to from saying what happened at McDonald's. So I know how this works. I don't know what the guy said. It's got to be a lie or they wouldn't be investigated. I didn't do anything wrong. So I said, no, I'm not going to fill out the to from. He said, you have to, or you're going to get written up for insubordination. I said, well, can this to from be turned into criminal investigation on me? And he said, yes. You could say something in here that we could then turn into a criminal investigation. Anybody knows that your words can be twisted. So I said, no, I'm not doing it. Well, round and around, and I was going to get in trouble for insubordination, so I ended up writing it. But I was really vague. But I said what happened. Exactly what I just told you. Apparently, when I left, this dude called 911, said that he'd been threatened by me, that I called him a commie, which I've never used that word before in my entire life. And he had made a complaint. They put APB'd on the radio, my car, but I didn't have my radio on because I'm off duty. I drove home. Apparently, the beatmen in D5 in District 5 were looking for me. My car was APB'd, and they were looking for me, but they never found me. So, because I was driving home and I didn't know about the call. He said I threatened him, terroristic threatening. And he wanted to press like a hate crime charge or something. In any case, he's the guy watching porn looking at kids, right? But technically I violated a policy and procedure or standard of conduct. I felt I had to show my badge to get the guy to do what he had to do. And because of that, you're supposed to make a report and document what happened. The manager didn't want to, so I didn't do it. So I get written up. So I talked to some friends. I talked to my union guy. I talked to some people I look up to, a couple supervisors, talked to my pastor. What should I do? He's like, yo, just fill out the letter. You'll be good. You didn't do nothing wrong. Just have faith that you'll be good. So I did that. Well, then my major said, yeah, it's all good. You're not going to get investigated. It is what it is. This is an anonymous complaint. I said, anonymous complaint? Well, where did it come from? They said, online. So the guy called police, didn't fill out a statement with the policeman there, but then went online and filed a complaint online. So I look at the complaint, because when you get a complaint made against you, you get to see the complaint. It was an email, and it came from, this is the email address. It gets really big at yahoo.com. My police department actually did an investigation on me from a pervert who used the email address. It gets really big at yahoo.com or hotmail.com or Gmail, whatever it is. So it's obvious this dude's a perv, right? So I was salty. And the reason I told that story is because there are things that you do as a policeman every day that might not be allowed because there's too many of them. And that's what I think happened here. I don't know. I don't have any proof of it, but you can get got because you violate a policy, procedure, or a standard of conduct. It is what it is. So there are just too many of them. That's what it comes down to. And that was probably the case here. So is it corruption? No. Is it someone picking on somebody? Probably. He probably didn't like her, if I had to guess. He sounds like a douche. But I haven't heard anyone say anything good about him. No one went on the news saying, no, this guy's, no, I don't see anybody fighting for him. But that doesn't mean they're not there. You know what I mean? So I think that was probably what happened here. So all those who made official federal complaints or filed lawsuits against Gerona said they had no other choice because they were ignored by the higher-ups, especially former HPD Chief Susan Ballard. You all know about Susan Ballard. She resigned. Her and Gerona were recruit school classmates. They went to recruit school together and apparently very protective of each other. I don't know anything about that. Do I protect my classmates? Yes. But like, it's not in that kind of capacity. I love my classmates like brothers because we went through hell together for 7 months. Got tased together, got OC sprayed together. Academy, when I went to academy, was like boot camp. So they're like my brothers, and I'd do anything for them. So like, yeah, if we're out on the beat and some dude starts scrapping with my classmate, I'm gonna help him. That's how I'm gonna protect him. But is it possible to protect a classmate when you're the chief? Probably. Probably. I don't know if it happened, but it's probably possible, if that's what you're wondering. After the 384, the thing that I got, which apparently doesn't, they kept telling me, Doug, why are you fighting this? It's just a 384. I said, because I never got a 384 my whole career. I want a clean record. I didn't do nothing wrong. I did the right thing. You're punishing me. And he was like, yo, this is a 384. It's not a punishment. It's not a discipline. I'm like, you say it's not a discipline. It's still in my record for 5 years. If I want to go transfer somewhere, that supervisor of that unit is going to see that 384. Sure, it falls off after a few years, but until then, I'm screwed, right? So they say it's not disciplinary, but it ain't. If it's not disciplinary, why are you giving it? Like, what is a warning if it goes on your record, right? Like when a policeman pulls you over and he says, no worries, you were doing 100 and a 50, but I'm going to write you up for 5 over. But writes on the ticket 100 and a 50, and then the violation's 5 over. You're like, bro, you wrote I was doing 100 and a 50. How are you helping me by writing it at 5 over? You know what I mean? It didn't make sense. It's just one of those fallacies that they say it's not. So technically it's not a discipline. So HPD can get away with saying that. But it really is. Because don't do it if it's not. After the 384 is a 121. If you get 2 384s on the same issue, you show up late, they give you a 384. You show up late again, now you get a 121. That's technically considered a discipline. It's a disciplinary action. So that's why they can say that. And the bottom line is the rules are the rules. They're in place. Everybody needs to follow them. Either make them all follow them or make the rules not rules. You feel me? And then some people are upset because certain units aren't subject to the same rules. But it's because certain units need more freedoms. Plainclothes units are by design and by nature going to have different freedoms than uniformed officers because they're in a covert operation. That's what they do. Their actual capacity is to just blend in because there are certain criminals you won't catch when you have a uniform on. That's real. And then there's certain divisions that you got to wear a different type of uniform. You're not wearing your Class A, which you see in the picture on this video, on the thumbnail, where it looks like like a button-up, like a dark law shirt with your hat. And I was on the ATV unit. We wore BDUs, which is a Class B uniform. It's like what you see the Army wearing, but ours were blue because I rode ATVs every night. And you don't want to be riding around in like polyester. So, and you got to be able to move and have ripstop fabric and stuff like that. So you're going to have certain units that don't have certain restrictions. And that's just what it is. Get over it. You know what I mean? Rego said that the day after the story came out on the news, in the commander's meeting, the chief announced, in spite of public outcry, that Gerona would not be moved. And Major Gerona declared his innocence at the meeting, saying he did nothing wrong, and he asked the audience of 63 supervisors, who's with me? Many commanders pledged their loyalty to him. So here's the deal. Did that happen? Probably. But I think this is also being dramatized. It's not like he was this horrible dictator who then said, who are all my evil supporters? And then they all rose up and said, we got you. You know what I mean? That's not how that worked. Probably a few of his classmates or people that worked with him before said, we're with you. But he probably meant more along the lines of his policy. Like, these are the rules, follow them or I write you up. You didn't follow them, so I wrote you up. But we all know that's somewhere in the middle, right? It's somewhere in the middle. You got to have more balance in that. So the chief said, until the investigation, no, he said, as police administrators, my staff and I rely on professional experience and knowledge of rules and laws to guide our actions. At this time, I'm unable to address the specific complaints aired on Hawaii News Now and will be inappropriate for the department to comment on ongoing investigations or lawsuits. That's real. We all, as the public, we gotta eat some humble pie on this one because we don't know what happened yet. Let's be honest. Anyone can make a complaint. Making a complaint does not justify taking action on somebody. The department does have a policy where if you make a complaint where there's a hostile work environment or something like that or sexual harassment, they will move the person you're complaining about. That can be used as a weapon too. Because you can be a supervisor of this great unit. You've always wanted to be a supervisor and you're doing good, but you butt heads with one officer. They make a complaint and then you get moved while they investigate. Meanwhile, 6 months go by and you're at some admin position hating life. So it can be weaponized both ways. Not saying it was here. I'm just trying to get perspective. So I think this was dramatized a little bit. It probably did happen. But there's probably guys that are like, I'm with you, that really weren't with him. You know what I mean? Sounds like a scary dude, right? Sounds like somebody, can you imagine? Like I've worked for, for all intents and purposes, he's a dick. That's how it sounds. You've all worked for them before. Dudes that get, they flex on certain people. Sure, there's going to be people with power trips, but nobody likes them. In the police department, they're in the union. They are protected, and you are rewarded for your years of service. So that's going to happen when you have those things. I'm not particularly happy about that. I think it should be more based on merit. I think it should be a meritocracy more so. You know what I mean? So we should wait. We should wait until the investigation is complete to make up our mind on what happened. He says, until the investigation is complete and the lawsuit is resolved, we will be reserving judgment and ask others to do the same. One side of a story, no matter how compelling, is not the full story. After all the facts have been presented, we will be in a better position to understand what actually transpired. And that's the truth. It may be convenient for him right now, but it is the truth. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it works against you. It is what it is. Vanek did rebut the allegation made by Miley Rego in a lawsuit that Gerona's command of CID prompted a wave of transfers. She said that there was a big wave of transfers when he went to CID, and the chief is saying, no, that didn't happen. A review of the 8 months of transfer requests received while Gerona oversaw CID showed no particular increase or decrease. So, that's not completely true. What he said is true, but it's not the whole truth. Yes, maybe there was not a bigger spike in transfers out of CID, but people constantly transfer out of CID. You can't look at the amount of people transferring out necessarily to find a problem. But there were like 27 officers that transferred out of CID, and I think 4 that tried to get in. So, yes, maybe there wasn't a spike in people leaving, but there was a drop in people wanting to go. That is the telltale sign. People hear, there's rumors. And I know what it's like when people want to leave a unit. You get a douchebag major that goes to D5, everybody dips out of D5. That's why I liked my position I was a support unit, because when everybody else was having drama with certain sergeants or majors or whatever, when their command changed, they all wanted to dip. I didn't want to go nowhere. I didn't have to run into anybody. So that's the good thing about being like in a support unit or maybe a specialized unit. But specialized units could catch a douchebag too. And then they want to leave. How would you like to work your whole life trying to get to SWAT, which we call SSD? You go to SWAT and all of a sudden some dude gets transferred there with seniority. He had more seniority than the next guy, but he's a douche. And now you hate life. You're in a good unit. You know how many times I saw good units ruined by bad sergeants? It's ridiculous. Good officers that want to hustle and work and pounding and get bad guys off the street and make a difference. But some slug sergeant comes in, he's like, yo, we're all going to lay low because there's culpable liability and I'm on probation for 6 months, 'cause that's how it works. And I don't want to get in trouble and I don't want to do any extra work and whatever. Everybody just go cruise. That's like defeating for a policeman that wants to do work. So I can see how it goes both ways. Last week, Gerona was moved to the legislative liaison office. I have the actual civil lawsuit from Miley Rego. I'm going to put it in the chat. If you want to read it, it's like 49 pages, so feel free. That's the lawsuit. The entire AFI is in there. The chief has asked the city's Human Resources Division to take over the investigation. I have 2 articles here, one from Civil Beat, one from Hawaii News Now. Both of those were used as references for some of the accusations. I'll put them here. In the chat. They can also be found in the description. So overall, I think that he's probably a douche. People probably don't like him. Should he go? Probably he should go. 38 years now you've been a policeman. You ready to go at 25. He's been 13 years longer than he probably should have. But he might be a good dude. I don't know. I just don't know. Jonathan Apollo says, is PSO and HPC? No. So the chief asked if HR could do the investigation so that no one would think that it is biased. They may say no. I don't know if they said yes yet. If that's the case, he could go to a different department. He could go to like the AG's office. So he has other options, but I think it's a good move. He wants someone else to investigate. That makes sense. If you ever have accusations of impropriety or have accusations of nepotism or have accusations of favoritism, you got to get that out. You got to source it out to a different agency. So that's probably the move. And unfortunately, they're going to judge those based on HPD's standards of conduct and practices. So those things are already super strict that are made to keep certain people from doing crazy stuff, but it affects everybody. So just little things like working special duty. Like you can only work 20, when I was working, you could only work 20 hours of special duty. They did that so that you weren't working too much and then your job was suffering. And I think now it might be 24. But they did that because some dudes were working 90 hours. You know what I mean? So the one bad apple spoiled the whole tree. That's basically how it worked. That's how they're treating you all like you're the bad apple. That's what sucks about it. So if you guys got questions, let me know in the chat. I'm going to go through some questions. Ask me whatever you want regarding this. I'm going to do other videos. There's a lot of other videos coming up you guys have been asking about. Baby Katana. The police chase with the crash. I believe it's Kahuku. I'm I'm definitely going to do videos on those things. All right, so let me see here. Let me say what's up. 2 Guns 3. Pam. Nons is in the house. Shauna. She said Pearl City Station back in the late 80s and 90s was so corrupt. Tony Benson. Mahuka. What's up, Tony? Sierra Whiskey Niner. What's up? So much allegations against Gerona. Retaliation, or what's your thoughts? Yeah, so I think there was probably some retaliation. Do I think it was illegal? Probably not. Do I think that Rego probably did some things wrong that they could write her up on? Probably. They probably could get her on unauthorized computer access. But does that sound reasonable to you? You know what I mean? So, Kyoki said, oh, he was your classmate, Kamehameha? I know one of his other classmates. You know Rebecca Stewart. Rebecca or Jake. Good friends of mine, like family. They graduated with him too. Said he was a good dude. I always liked him. I didn't know him, but I always liked him. What I did see, I always liked him. Thought he was cool. I don't know how he's doing. I'm gone. I'm long gone. Tweak Mode 808 said, I got pulled over for exhibition of speed. Someone cut out my catalytic converter, so I just straight piped it. Since getting a new catalytic converter is expensive. Won my court. Dope. Good for you. Yeah, so exhibition of speed technically is when you rev your engine or you do a burnout at a light. Yeah, Rebecca is one of my favorite people in the whole world. I had her husband Mike on. If you go back, you see a video, Mike Batella. That's her husband. Good people. They named my daughter. They gave my daughter her name. And Oakland's middle name, Nalukai. Soapy One says a nosy cop is a good cop. We said a noisy cop, but I think you meant a nosy cop, and I agree. Jonathan Apollo says, I got a question. Where should the next chief come from, internal or external hire? Man, I am a huge fan of an internal hire. I truly believe that a police chief needs to be hands-on and know the place he comes from. I'm okay with him not being from HPD, but I think he should be from Hawaii. Hawaii is a special place. It's different from the mainland. It's a microcosm. And I think that it's important that the chief, he or she, understands the pulse of Hawaii, because you bring a mainland police chief over here, it's going to be too much. It's going to be too much. But I could be wrong. Maybe Hawaii needs that. But for me, as an outsider coming in, an off-island recruit, there's such a curve to understanding Hawaii. And I only had really good, solid Hawaiian families that were super close, that were like they basically brought in my family. They Hanai'd all of us, taught us everything there was. We got to see what life was really like. We got to see what Hawaii was about. And they helped us because it's a transition. So I think it should be like that for the police chief. I think the police commission is the place for non-police officers, or maybe police officers, people who are not from Hawaii. I'm okay with the police commission being all off-island haoles. I'm cool with that. Because they just review from a business perspective, from an organizational perspective, and community service. Whereas the police chief has got to be a police officer. And if you're a police officer anywhere else, you don't understand Hawaii. So that's my answer on that. I think the police chief should be from Hawaii. At least from Hawaii, and a police officer. Could be from sheriff department. I mean, no one's going to let that happen, but I'd be cool with that. I think Kenji Price would make a good police chief. Kenji Price for police chief. How about that? I'm going to make the shirt. Let me see here. Maui onion. Yeah, Shiloh. That's what we say. Listen, no joke. The month I left, I heard Maui onion on the radio. So we still say Maui onion. There must have been policemen that worked with old timers, and now they say it. Because I used to say Maui onion. Skyline Letter says, anonymous complaints? No way. If someone wants to complain on an officer in my department, they have to meet with the supervisor and put pen to paper. That's how it should be. Well, technically, that's why I never got, I couldn't have been investigated on the criminal side. And police officers have this thing called garrity rights, which I'm sure you know, Skyline. But I told them, I want you to read me my garrity rights. If you're going to make me fill out this to from, we call it a to from, it's our interdepartmental communication. If you're going to make me fill out a to from, I want you to read me my garrity rights. They're like, we don't have to. This is not criminal. This is interdepartmental. I said, yeah, but you can take this interdepartmental to from and you can turn it into a criminal complaint based on what I say. And they said, then we'll read you your garrity. I'm like, well, then it's too late. You told me I had to write this down. So it was tricky how that worked. Soapy One says, Waikiki residents struggle with homeless at night. Please, your input is needed. September 29th, it made local KITV4. Why are the cops not enforcing no camping laws in Waikiki? Soapy One, here's why. They're getting pulled. It's like a tug of war. They're being told that they have to enforce like sit-lie rules. But then on one side, you have lawsuits and you have all this pressure for them not to flex on the homeless because you have the ACLU saying that we're violating homeless rights by enforcing laws that are strictly designed to be enforced on homeless. But they're not. Any one of us could go do what they're doing and get in trouble with camping laws. I have no idea why it's not being enforced. In D1 where I worked, we enforced. That was my unit. I ran all the parks in District 1. We had, I think it was 27 parks. Everything from Ala Moana Beach Park, Kaka'ako, Kewalo Basin, Dole, Kamamalu, Awaiulimu, Kaulavela, all the schools, Smith Beretania, Sheridan Park, Pawa Park, Makiki Park, all the lookouts. And so I would enforce those areas at nighttime. What is the latest on the Miski case? So that's coming up real quick. Ala Park, Jonathan, yep, Ala Park. So Beretania Community Park. The latest on Miski, that's coming up. There's been a couple cases recently. There's been some like court. They had to do some rescheduling, things like that. There's people trying to get out on bail. They've been getting denied. I got a video coming up soon. It'll be this month. I'm going to Disney World next week. I'll do a video from Disney World. I'm going to Disney World, so I'll be gone for a weekend. I'll only be there for like 3-4 days. But sometime this month, I'm going to do a video. I got some good stuff that came up that we'll get into. And things are going to start happening. So I'll definitely keep you guys updated with that. Shiloh says, what's going on at HPD goes on everywhere. All types of departments, businesses have the power, hungry brass, the bad apples, the good workers. That's right. I agree. Shauna says, so what you're saying is nothing's going to happen to Gerona. That's what I'm saying. Nothing's going to happen to Gerona. Here's the thing, though. Let's just do hypotheticals. We don't know what happened yet. So, Jonathan, my episode 3 I didn't do yet, bro. You didn't miss it. Don't worry, I'm going to get to that video. I will. I'm definitely going to make that happen this year. So, we don't know what he did yet. We know he's a douche from what they're saying. If what they're saying is true, let's do it that way. We'll go hypotheticals. If what Miley Rago is saying is true, he's a douche. Is it illegal? Probably not. He probably didn't do anything illegal. When you get to be that level, you're smarter than that. He might be an idiot. I don't know. But he probably didn't do anything illegal. He probably did it in a way that was within and covered under policy. But also was probably harassing and was probably revenge, retaliation, probably. But how can you charge someone with retaliation if he did what the policy says? She looked into a case that she was not involved in. He got her for unauthorized computer access, right? So for me, the unauthorized computer access is a bogus charge. But if it's in there, he can hit her with that. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Is it's murky water. It's brackish water we're dealing with. It's probably all true. Everything she said is true and everything he said is true. That's probably what it is. And so he's not going to get fired. We know that. Hey, mark my words. If he gets fired, he's going to sue the department for millions or hundreds of thousands. Why would all the people say or file against Major? All of them, one thing is Gerona. True, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire. But also, if I'm in a unit, think about it. I was a 4-man unit. I had 4 guys in my unit. If one of us left, we was all leaving. And we did. We all left. Because you build a camaraderie and a trust with each other. That you can trust this person's got your back. When you need them and the guns come out and you guys are getting jumped or something crazy's going down, that they're going to be there for you because they love you. You build that in a unit. That's why crew units are so special. That's why you force somebody. They forced D1 crew to let me go into D1 crew. They didn't want me. Right? I was doing good work and I could bring something to the table. But they had a tight unit already that they all trust. They didn't know me from anybody, from Donald Duck. So I kind of threw off, you know how it is? Like you got 3 kids that all get along, you throw one kid in there that doesn't vibe with them, now they all fighting. So that could be true too. You're right, where there's smoke, there's fire. But it is very possible that he just did some things that maybe they went to CID because they wanted to make money and all of a sudden he's like stopping them from making money. So I tend to agree that that's probably the case. I always take the officer's perspective because I've seen it from an officer's perspective. But I don't know what it's like to be a commander. I don't know what it's like to be brass. I don't know what you hear from above. I don't know what they're telling you up there. And that maybe you learn something that we don't know and all of a sudden you're like, you got to do all these things we don't understand. So I don't know. But yeah, he probably is not going to get in trouble. At least criminally, he won't get in trouble. Is it possible he's going to get written up? Yeah. It's possible he might take some days. Suspension, guys, is just taking days without pay. But he's not going to lose his retirement. He's not nothing like that. And he probably shouldn't. Like he served the community for a long time. I'm telling you guys, being a policeman can turn you into a dick. It really can. It really can. 38 years, all you do is you deal with the worst of the worst. I don't deal with you guys. When I you guys on my channel, it's hard for you to really understand, like, this is not how police interaction is. I'm not with reasonable people that have good points. No, I'm with a guy who beats up his wife, right? Like, I'm arresting a dude that beats up his wife or sexually assaults his niece or is assaulting people or robbing people or doing burgs, or he's chronic and he's all, he smokes Batu every day and you can't, like, those are the people you deal with as a policeman. 38 years of that. 38 years of being like, when you're in CID and you're seeing dads rape daughters, that's real, guys. That stuff happens all the time. It's always the uncle that was babysitting the daughter. She's 2. And you constantly hear cases like that. You're the supervisor that's approving the reports. That messes with your head. So it doesn't mean you were always like that. But eventually it's like, yo, you got to step away. I only saw it after I left. I was only there 7 years. And it completely changed my brain. It was like surgery on my brain. And it's hard to, I'll never unsee or unlearn what I saw. And so every day I'm trying to become a human again. Your brain was not meant to see someone jump off a building and splat on the ground and then go to a abuse case and then a child abuse and a robbery or a murder. So is he probably a dick? Yeah. Probably 38 years, you would be too. Should he probably retire? Yes. That's what I think is going to happen. He's going to retire. He's going to take his retirement. It's probably a good thing. Let's be honest. Probably a good thing. Because remember the saying, if you haven't gotten sued, you're not doing your job. I never got a lawsuit. That one complaint was the only one I had. But that's because I was doing my job as a father, but also as a policeman at that McDonald's. And I got in trouble because I was being proactive, because I didn't sit there and let that dude do that. Shiloh said, I would get rewarded by brass for something I did that was good. My immediate supervisor was so jealous she tried to find anything to write me up. See, that can happen. You can get written up when you're a good policeman. I just got officer of the quarter. But here's the thing. I can get written up for doing something bad, and I'm a good cop. But also, becoming officer of the quarter is nothing. Yeah, I did some good work that quarter, but I did good work my whole career. I only got that because someone made my sergeant submit for me to be officer of the quarter. You know what I mean? Like if there's anyone out there that's a sergeant or above, shoot, probably even a PO9, and you guys are watching, put in for your officers to get the awards. If they're doing good, put in for them to do the awards. If you're a bolo sergeant, you don't like doing that. And the sergeant I had was told to submit. And he did, and I won it. I just so happened to really done good work that year. But I also could have got it for not doing that great of work. It's like, it wasn't important. So getting written up doesn't mean anything, just like getting an award. There's good 384s too. That's one part I didn't tell you guys. You can get 384s that are basically division counseling, essentially. That's what they call them. You'll do like a counseling. But it can also be you got an award. It's a commendation. It's called the 384. It's a good one. So you can get those too. 384s mean something and don't mean something. That's why this is like a gray area. Nate Fleming says, it's always hard to get someone to go away when it's a volunteer job. Plenty knuckleheads came and gone wanting to be called coach. Yep. Everyone, don't forget the political landscape, state and city. Yep. And don't forget, police chief is a political position. People are so scared of discipline here that the homeless have taken over Waikiki. I don't think the FBI is getting involved in this case, Space Cowboy, because this is not criminal. At this point, it's not criminal. There may be a sexual harassment case, but the FBI wouldn't get involved in that. And then Soapy One said, have you seen the video of Waikiki homeless at night recently, and what is your outtake on this? Yeah, I think I talked about that. I don't know Jake Renata. Seems like everyone likes Kenji Price. So, hey, how the sit lie works is, and there could be various, there could be various variations or forms of this, but essentially how the laws are written is you're not allowed to be in a park at night so you can go to the sidewalk and sleep. But you're not allowed to be on the sidewalk during the day because you can go to the park to sleep. So technically you're making it work for them. But the ACLU is saying that it's inhumane to make them move every night. But that's exactly the problem, is that they set up a camp. It's like if you're homeless, you're homeless. What are you doing building up all this stuff? You're actually in more danger the more stuff you get, because the more people want your stuff. Paul says, is it true you need to play softball with crew guys just to get into crew? No, it's not. But I will say that plenty of officers try to get into crew by putting in a transfer to crew. That's not going to happen. Unless the crew sergeant tells you to put into crew, don't put into crew. Now, is there a small chance that crew's going to have an availability and they're going to fill that slot with you? It's possible. It is not probable. The crew sergeants and the crew officers, they are trying to pick who they want. So they are thinking about it already. You will be approached by somebody if they want you in crew. They will approach several people. If they have a spot opening, they will approach 7 people and get a vibe. Then they'll go back and they'll ask all the guys, yo, what do you guys think about these guys? And they'll show you. How about this dude? Anybody know this dude? And everybody like, yeah, he's cool. He works real hard. How about this guy? He doesn't really know what he's doing, or I don't like his attitude, or he already acts like a motorman. He's a footman already. And like that happens. So they basically all vote and I like this guy. And the sergeant, okay, goes to the captain and said, yo, this is the dude that I want. Then they approach that guy. They set it up. They get ready. When the push comes in, he puts in his transfer. They accept the transfer, or they can special assign. They can SA him to that unit. That's how it works. And I honestly don't have a problem with that. I think that should be how it works. Because I really think you got to be able to trust your people. But the problem is when you get a bad sergeant. Because you can have good dudes who all trust each other, and you bring in a sergeant that they don't trust, they're not going to go work for him. Because it's dangerous. I talk to officers all the time. They're not proactive anymore. They're done being proactive. Not just one, scores of officers that I talk to, they are done being proactive, because when you get proactive, you get in trouble. The department comes after you for that. You want to stay clean? Don't be proactive. Just wait for the radio. Go park your car with your light on at the corner of Kemoku and Kapiolani for presence. And when they call on the radio, we got a burglary, go do your burglary call. Go to your robbery. Go to your UEMV. Go to your shoplifting. And then you stay out of trouble. But trying to be proactive, that's not right anymore. You can't be proactive. So that's why you see officers not being proactive. It's because they're walking on eggshells right now. Because you're bound to forget to turn on your body camera, or you're bound to like not call off on the radio, or you're bound, stuff happens where something happens real quick and you forget to do something. Now you're getting written up. So if you're doing 5 cases a day instead of 10, that's half the chances you're going to screw up. And you got to think about retirement. You got kids. You guys know how hard it is to survive in Hawaii. You're barely making any money. You both got to work, especially now with the new agreement. But it doesn't hurt to play softball with them. I had classmates who started playing softball when they weren't supposed to play softball, because you're not supposed to patch it. What do they call? Fraternize. You're not supposed to fraternize with officers when you're in academy. So I did have dudes that were playing softball, and they went to crew. You know what I mean? Like, it happens. But when you become friends, they can trust you. So that is a little bit of a good old boy system, but I think that a tinge of that can exist for safety. But you also have to have the other end of it. You got to be an officer that can handle, that knows what to do, good at verbal judo. You can handle yourself physically. You're good investigative skills, and you trust the guys. Like, it takes a lot to make that, mixture work. James Lockman, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Space Cowboy says, have you worked with FBI before? Seems like they have that kind of keep to themselves down here in Hawaii side because they have their own priorities. Last time they were out here was about the Miski case. Yeah, Hawaii sticks to themselves. They come and speak to the recruit classes at the academy, and they connect with what we call the Fusion Center. The Fusion Center is in town. That Fusion Center has multi-jurisdictional agencies from all over. DEA, ICE, FBI, HPD, the AG's office, they all work together. They do that because when you're doing operations, you got to know where everybody's at. You don't want to be investigating a dude for buying kilos of cocaine and then you find out after you guys shoot him that he was a HPD officer that was undercover for 3 years. You don't want to burn someone's cover. Also, whenever we would say hit a house, we were looking for a fugitive once for a bank robbery in Salt Lake, and we had to hit the guy's house. You would call the deconfliction line and deconflict with other agencies that were in the area because you want to make sure you weren't hitting a spot that they were watching and screw up some investigation. They've been working 10 years on a RICO case or something. So they do stay low key. And for good reason, like they're the ones that investigate HPD if there's some like civil rights violation. So yeah, they're out there though. They are out there. You don't see them, but they are out there. There was a shooting up on the pulley a while back with a FBI officer about 20 years ago. I don't know if you guys remember the shooting on the pulley lookout. And the Miski case, like they were watching them already. FBI was on Miski. That was happening. So. As well as being houseless should not be a crime. How we as a society treat these fine folks is a big reflection on us. Walk a mile in their moccasins, right? Yeah, and that's true. And houselessness should not be a crime. That's for sure. However, just because we have a houseless problem doesn't mean that one particular community over another needs to suffer, right? So there is a balance somewhere. We got to figure something out. We got to figure something out. Listen, if at my store I'm giving away free bread, people are going to come to my store and get free bread. So if you give out free donuts at night, like a particular donut shop on 4th Street and Hotel, 4th Street? I don't know if it's 4th Street. I think it's 4th Street, Union Mall. Right at Union Mall and Hotel Street, there is a donut shop that gives away donuts at night to the homeless. All the donuts that they're going to throw out. He's being a good dude. He's trying to feed homeless people. However, that keeps homeless people around. where you have other businesses that are really struggling, trying to build their business, but people don't come because they're scared of the homeless. Then you have a dude who feeds the homeless. My neighbor right now, he feeds there's squirrels. He has squirrels in his house. So he throws like food off on the side of his house to feed the squirrels. I don't have squirrels in my house, but guess what? This week I heard a squirrel in my wall. I gotta literally find out how a squirrel got in my house. They're living in the wall somewhere. I gotta get them out now. I didn't ask for that. It's not fair that I gotta deal with the squirrel, but I'm only dealing with the squirrel because my neighbor feeds them. Or if I get a mole in my backyard, if I kill all the moles in my yard, but then my neighbor doesn't take care of his yard, then the moles come from his yard into my yard, right? So there is an after effect for everybody. And I think it's like that with houseless too. The RCPs, we call them residentially challenged persons. RCPs are a big problem in Hawaii. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who are homeless are not from Hawaii and are a drain on the resources in Hawaii. And so if we take the strategy that you should do nothing to the homeless criminally, then if we took that to its extreme, you could tell everyone come here. And then guess what? All the money's being spent, homeless everywhere, and then everyone moves out, now there's no tax money. So, like, there's gotta be a better way. It's not the police chief's problem to deal with homelessness. One of my big shticks that you guys will all hear about me, and that you'll hear me say multiple times, the police should not be dealing with the homeless. The police should not be dealing with mental illness. Hire people that go out and help the homeless, mental support, physical support, spiritual support, financial support. Yes, they definitely need that, but not policemen. Because some things are too wide of a range to have a single person do. You train policemen with their weapons, with verbal judo. You teach them about the law, teach them how to protect people and preserve life. How many things are you going to add to the policemen? Pretty soon, just make them start putting out fires. Just give them a hose and make them firemen. And give them an ambulance. Make them firemen, paramedic, police officers. And then where does it stop? Keep policemen, policemen. That's what I say. Keep policemen, policemen. Train them to do one thing and to do it well. Train someone else to do the other stuff. It shouldn't be on the... How are you going to try to decriminalize homelessness and then give it to the police chief? He literally deals with criminal activity. Police should deal with criminals. I don't even think you should have policemen giving speeding tickets. That's not how they do it here. You know what we have in the mainland? Those of you who are on the mainland who are policemen, you're going to trip out at this. Everyone does. And those in Hawaii who know how it is, you're going to trip if you've never been to the mainland. On the mainland, if it's a cold case, you have civilians who write it up. Your cadets from recruit school write it up, your recruits. You walk to the police station. You got to go to the police station to file a cold call. If someone broke in your house and stole your TV and your couch, you got to go to the police station to fill that out. And it's not by a police officer. It's like a secretary. The only thing that police respond to are hot calls out here. In Hawaii, you can call 911 if you lost your wallet. That is crazy. If you drop your credit card, you can call 911 and the officer will drive to your house and do a lost property report. That's how that works. That ain't right. Keep policemen, policemen. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do a video on Sam Kapoi. Because that's messy. That's messy because on one end, like I want to I think drug traffickers need to be punished. But then there's another end where you're like 27 years? What are we doing? 18 years? Is that real? Are you really going to do that for some drugs? When a dude can rape somebody or sexually assault someone and get out in 18 months? I just did a video about it. That's messed up. We got to be consistent if we're going to do it. All right, guys. I'm going to be wrapping up here. We'll do another one. I don't want to, it's already 2 hours, right? No one's even going to click on this video tomorrow when they see 2 hours. They're like, nope. So, yo, I appreciate you guys. I see a bunch of new names in here. So that's dope. I like seeing you guys. So I appreciate you coming out. Thank you so much for the support. Big shout out to all my Patreons. Thank you for signing up. The new Patreons that sign up while we're on the video. Thank you guys. You guys are the best. I'm going to do another one this week. And it's probably going to be on the Sam Kapoy. So look out for that one. If you got questions, make sure you leave them in the chat. I appreciate you guys. You guys are the best. Until the next time, aloha.